Hi everyone, welcome to our data science, machine learning and AI course, your first step towards mastering the skills to become an artificial intelligence and AI expert. Our current module is all about Python fundamentals. Check out the full playlist in the description for everything we have covered so far and hit subscribe to stay updated with new lessons and future modules. Today we are going to learn about Tuple. Tuple is also a data structure in Python similar to this which we covered in our previous video. If you have not watched it, I highly recommend that you watch the previous videos that actually have covered the core concept about the list data structure in Python. Tuple is also a data structure that has the elements in an ordered format but immutable, unchangeable. As we discussed about the list, that list is also an ordered collection of elements, and lists are also mutable, they are changeable, but tuples are not. And then once we have actually created a tuple, we cannot actually change its the value inside the tuple as well. So let's now do some coding examples with tuples. And also tuples are very helpful when you are actually trying to return some outputs from functions, so that can be stored in the form of tuple. And one for syntax that example that I can give you for tuple is the coordinates of x, y, and z in our Cartesian coordinate system, or it can be just x, y coordinates. So I will just say coordinates equal 0.1 comma 3.5, just like this. And that is an example of tuple. Lists have these square brackets used. For the tuple, we have this parenthesis that we use. So tuple has a syntax of parenthesis, then the values separated by a comma, and then parenthesis close. So I can print it now, and then I can go and add another cell and print the coordinates in that. So you can see it has been printed. As I mentioned earlier, tuple is an ordered collection of elements. It means that every element in tuple has an index similar to list. And what does index mean is that index means the location of that value inside the tuple. So the first value here, indexing in Python starts from 0. So in any ordered collection of elements, the first element will have the index of 0. So the index of this element 0.1, which is stored inside the tuple, is 0, and I can even call it in this way by typing print coordinates and use a square bracket. Every time when you want to access the something in the Python for lists, tuples, arrays, you use actually square brackets to specify the index. And I will specify the index 0 and run this cell with control enter, and you can see when I specified 0, it returned me 0.1. If this one is 0 index, the next one will be 1. If I just change this one to 1 and run again, it is showing me 3.5. Now, one thing that I mentioned earlier in the definition, that once you have created a tuple, you cannot change the value of the tuple for any index. For example, if you try to write coordinates 0 and you want to change it as 1.2 and then try to run the cell, it will give you an error. And the error is that tuple object does not support item assignment. So it does not support item assignment, you cannot go and change it, so it will remain fixed. That is one thing. Now also the same len function length, which we have seen in the list as well, to know the length of the data structure such as tuples, lists, dictionaries, or sets, we just need to specify the variable name inside the len function. So our variable for the tuple is coordinates, and if I run len function on tuple, it is saying that it has 2 elements inside it. Now tuples, it can contain any data type similar to lists, and tuple will be actually represented in another example, like I say tuple example. And so I mentioned earlier that tuples will be using these parentheses, and inside parentheses I can have another pair of parentheses, tuple inside a tuple with a value 1 comma 3 comma 4, and then I can have another tuple with apple and grapes, and then I can have another tuple with the float values like 2.1, and along with that I can have some integer values like 5. I can even have a string as well like banana example, etc., and I can even have a boolean value here as false. So all these things are possible, that you can have tuples inside tuples with different data types, and if I print it, it will not say any error about this thing because it is a valid example of tuple. We can print it. So you can see we are able to print it, and now we can even iterate over tuples in the same fashion we iterated over lists using every element in the list. We can also iterate tuples with that as well. So I can say for loops we have covered. If you don't know about for loops, please watch our previous video. We have covered for loop in detail, and here we will say for loop is actually going to check each element inside the tuple. So I will say each element in tuple example. I'll just copy paste it here. So in is a membership operator. It is mentioning that for all the elements present in tuple example, so I'm iterating on each element one by one, and then we specify a colon at the end, and then we will actually print each element. So you can see we have iterated on each element. So inside the tuple we had some other tuples, and by the way, you can also have lists inside the tuple as well. So I can give another example where we just actually just copy this tuple example from here, paste it here, and then we can even add a list of objects here as well. For example, I say 5 3. So I just added a string value of 5 and an integer value like this, and I can still print this one as a valid example of tuple as well. So you can see we can even have lists inside the tuple as well. Now going further, tuple is a data type. So type is a function in Python which you can use to check the data type of any data structure, any object that you see. So if we want to check the data type of tuple example, it will tell us that it is a tuple because we know that, and we can also check the data type of each of these data sets, data elements that are present inside the tuple as well. And let's do that example using the for loop again. So this same for loop, I will just copy it here, and along with printing each element, what we can do, so we will say each element in tuple example, and we want to print each element, comma, we will also print the type of each element. So type is a function, you write type, you write parenthesis, and then you specify the object which is each element in our case, and then you print the type of it. So you see, for each element inside this tuple example, first element was 134, which is a tuple. We have actually seen that its data type is tuple. Then we have another one which is also a tuple, and we have its data type as tuple. Then we have another one which is also a tuple, we have its data type as tuple, and then we have a list inside here as well, and the data type for that is list. So that is a way you can iterate on each element present inside a tuple and then perform some operations on it. So tuple does not have a lot of operations that can be performed, but there is an unpacking of the tuples that you can also do. For example, the tuple that we have contains like for example these 4 values here, and let's make this example simple one, and let's go back to our example of coordinates, and we have the coordinates like this 0.1, 3 point, and 3.5. I'll print it here again just to know that we have the, so we have these values, and unpacking of this can be very easy. So I can write it as like this. Now what will happen, because I know coordinates has actually 2 values in the tuple, and when I unpack this in this format that I say x comma y, so I am giving the placeholder variables for each value inside the coordinates. So I say x comma y and coordinates, and then what I can do, I can print x comma y and run it. So it has unpacked, and I can see that in the x we have the value of 0.1, in the y we have the value of 3.5. But if by mistake I specify a z here, and now I am saying that I want to retrieve 3 values after unpacking this tuple and then run it, let's see. So there is an error. Why? Not enough values to unpack. Expected 3, got 2. I was expecting 3 values, but my coordinates has 2 values, so it will give me an error. So always try to check that before you actually unpack your tuple. Now we can also, as you have seen the elegant function, we can also have a count function on tuples as well. So inside the coordinates we can just run the count function with dot. So we call this variable of tuple, then write dot, and then write this count as count function, and we run it. Now takes exactly one argument. Why? It counts the elements that are present inside it. So I will specify 0.1, and it will count that yes, 0.1 is present here, and it has counted it. It is occurring one time. Similarly, we have the index. So the same thing I did with the count, I can also do it with index as well. And let's try to do that here with index. And you can always check the help. So when you actually click this, it returns first index of value. So if I write 3.5 and run it, it will just return me the index. Okay, do not confuse it with this count. So I can even request the index for 0.1 and run it. Now it will be 0 because 0.1 is present at index 0 of the coordinates. Similarly, as you have seen, count and index functions. Count is a function that is useful to count the occurrence of any value inside the tuple, and then index is a function that can be used to actually return the first index of value, as you see from the help. We have another function way of getting inputs from the elements from this tuple using slicing. Slicing is a way in Python that is performed in different data structures like lists, strings, and tuples and sets as well. And let's take another example of tuple. Example 1 equal, and then I will write tuple like 1 comma 2.5 comma 3.0 and then 5 and tu. Okay, just for example. And then what I will do now, I want to actually first print this example. After printing the example, I want to actually slice it based on the information that I need. So as I mentioned earlier, indexing in Python starts from 0, and it starts from left to right in the lists or in tuples or in sets. So this location in an ordered example has a value with index value 1 with index 0. This has a value of tu but index of 4, because starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, and this one will have value 4 as an index, and the value itself is tu. And I want to slice it starting from index 2 onwards. And what I will do, I will say print example 1 square bracket starting index for the slice, which is index 2, then a colon that specifies up to where you want to go, and you specify the ending index. Ending index I can specify as 4 and then print it. Now it has printed 3.0 and 5, similar to lists. And if I do not specify this 4 here and run it again, it will go up to the end, up to this part where it will cover everything. So that was all about tuples, and in our next video we will learn about sets, and then after that we will learn about dictionaries. So stay connected. Till then, keep learning. Have a good day.